Hello and welcome everyone. I have my wonderful friend Marti Murphy with me here today. Thank you for coming, Marti.
Absolutely.
I love that we can join in different states.
Yes.
I'm in Utah, you're in New Mexico, and it's fabulous. We get to meet online.
Right. Exactly. Southwestern girls.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you today, Marti, about psychosomatics. I've had quite a few people asking me questions about how can it be used? What's it for? What is it? And so I wanted to address that. And you and I actually met for the first time in 2014.
Yes.
In Vegas. That was an experience, but that's where we first met.
Right. And Obama was there.
Obama was there and the hotel was in lockdown.
Yep.
And we were still there, which was great.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was very strange. You get sniffed by dogs every time you go in and out of a door.
Right. It's like being in an airport. Got to go through all the time.
Yeah, that was an experience.
Right.
I didn't see Obama though. We just
I saw him on the golf course, but at a distance. And then we had all the, what are they called? The guys that watch them, not security guards.
Secret Service.
Secret Service. Thank you. All the Secret Service guys all over the place.
Yes, they were very pleasant to look at though.
They were, and we had fun as mature ladies. And I thought I stopped this. Mature ladies, like, it was so hilarious. They were like blushing because we're like, oh, we've got daughters and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that was very fun. So when we first met, that was in 2014, and we were both introduced to psychosomatics.
Yes.
The first dipping your toe in the water. So I would like you to share with us how that was for you and where you were at in your life. What were you doing and why did you take it?
Yeah, well, I was still, actually, I had just quit my corporate job.
Okay.
Like a few months, that was November. I'd quit it the month before. And I had the face split done, and this always stands out when I was saying on my female side, I look like a pissed off Amish woman because that's how I felt. And then I look like Hulk Hogan's sister on the other side. And it was so illuminating, but I loved it because when I was introduced to the work, I was actually at a business workshop up in Canada and saw our mutual teacher. And I was riveted because she had a couple people standing up on stage. I'll never forget one guy in particular. He was a doctor, I want to say of Oriental medicine from Australia. And she just said, "What's up with your father?" And he started to cry. And it was like, whoa. And he said, "My father left when I was 3. And she started talking how she could read the body. And I always thought her saying was hilarious. "I'm as psychic as a brick," which sounds like her. And I read the body. And so I was riveted. And what the connection I saw, because I do tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. I have my own tapping certification. I've done thousands of sessions with clients, and I got into tapping because honestly, I was tired of my own stuff. And I really put an intention out to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. If there's something that can truly finally help me change my life, please send it my way. I'm tired of wanting things I can't have. And then tapping came into my world. So tapping, you're working with people's psychology. And when I saw that seminar, at that seminar, it's like, oh my God, I so see the connection of what the body tells us that can help working with someone, not to shame someone, not to put someone down, not to put somebody on the spot, but to always respectfully, with my clients, I always would respectfully say, "Hey, are you interested in the potential psychosomatics of this, the possibilities?" And if they said yes, I could just see how that can help. And we were laughing. This is one of the primary book I use. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I've used it. And honestly, Christy, even this book, which I love, there's certain language in here that I would soften and change. but I love that it gives kind of a quick overview on what's going on with someone physically, and then potentially what the emotional content is. So that can help. And I feel like if you work with the mind and the psyche and the body, you have this complete package to really help someone regulate the nervous system and heal, traumatic events in their life, and which are the things that hold us back. And I mean, I seldom don't use psychosomatics. I don't use it to the extent that you do. That's why I'm so glad you went all the way and got the teaching, but I use this all the time and ask people. And I mean, everyone I've used it with has found it helpful.
Mhm.
And it's, again, this space is very safe, sacred. It's not to be like, oh, well, let me look up and see what that says. Because
Right.
I have had the experience with people who I don't know who they worked with, but they were in circumstances with someone that had studied the body-mind connection, and they felt highly judged about it.
Mm.
And I feel very strongly, that's why I love you, Chrissy, because you are the far gentler, kinder approach, and you're very sensitive to people and to be informative and not in any way be like, well, you know what that says about you. It's and the way you teach it is all, it's so riveting. It's like, oh, I want to learn more, because it's fun and it's illuminating, and it's not, it's even in my world in tapping there. I'm just going to speak to this. There's practitioners that I'm like, I would not want to go to them if I was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important in our world, because it's been incredibly illuminating for me to be in this helping field and to see what I've seen with practitioners. And I would tell people, if you're picking a practitioner of any kind in the healing profession, if you get any kind of feeling like this doesn't feel right to me, I would say exit.
Yeah.
Because it is so important to have trust and to feel safe with a practitioner. And it's foundational for me. And but I love the combination of just in the quick way that I use it to be like, because this is psychosomatics is also a guide for me at times on what to tap on. And if I can use one example, people that carry extra weight. I always say it this way: being overweight in our toxic culture is an acceptable form of prejudice. It's very unfortunate that our society and culture has been trained to be like, get off the couch, put the fork down, blah, blah, blah. And the whole fat shaming thing. I mean, I remember back when Bill Maher came out and was like, you should fat shame people. And I'm like, what?
Yep.
And I was so horrified by that, because I have a group that I work with ladies that have struggled with that. And to me, weight, protection, think about somebody protecting themselves. To me, there's so much similarities to hoarding. It's insulating yourself. And that, if that is not attended to in a loving and caring way, because people that are struggling with weight are already vulnerable and trying to protect themselves, and then to be re-traumatized and shamed it's horrifying to me. So with psychosomatics, when I've talked about, hey, like, what do you think you need to protect yourself from? It opens up a whole new world for me to tap with them. And I truly believe it helps people to judge themselves less and to learn to accept themselves more.
Right, because you're connecting that emotional component with, because in psychosomatics, just so people understand, the emotions are held in the tissue, the muscle tissue, and the extra tissue, and even people that are really thin, it's just the opposite of running away sometimes from emotions and not being present in the body, where if there's more, everyone processes differently.
Right.
And so depending on the body type, and teaching someone to understand their own body type and their map within this intelligence, I think the more that it doesn't matter what your body type is, if you can understand your body type and why it might be that way, and how to be more gentle, I think that's the beginning path of healing.
Right.
And that's what I'm hearing you say is psychosomatics for you has really helped you language it differently based on a body type.
Very much so.
And also understand yourself, and probably the red flags when your body communicates to you that either you're pushing too hard, like you said, Hulk Hogan, the right side, which is our doing side. It's our masculine energy. It's what the world perceives us as.
Right.
And for you, I'm guessing it was push, 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 do, more. And I think the illusion that behind our eyes that a face split shows us is the imbalance of what's true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's sometimes really challenging to look at what's true.
Right.
And that's where that gentleness comes in.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I just thought of this, Christy, because, you and I were talking about it. I have this passion now to help women like embrace aging.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about psychosomatics with that is, like I personally, not everybody's got to do what's right for them. Maybe I'll change my mind. I would tell you, I hope I don't. I joke with my daughters. I'm like, hey, doesn't that look better? Guess what? I'm not doing anything about it. Because I also believe we live in a toxic culture that's youth obsessed.
Yeah. And
like the lines on our face tell a story.
Yes, they do.
Our jawline, and when it tells a story. And in our culture, again, it's like to learn to embrace that. And I would tell you, Christy, as I sit here and say this to you, knowing psychosomatics has helped me accept my body in so many more ways and accept the aging process in a lot more ways, because I will be 61 in June.
Yeah.
And have I noticed ways I'm aging? Yeah. But I would never, there's not an age I would go back to. And I even think about how like I used to hate my legs. Well, there's a lot about my body I hated. And because I always had muscular legs. I mean, I look at pictures of me as a kid and I always had some sort of muscular structure to me. I was an athlete. That's where I got my confidence, but I hated it. And then to be like, now I'm like, I love that about me. Because the cultural programming is be sweet, be kind, be feminine, be demure. I've never been a girly girl, ever. I was a tomboy. And the way I talk.
Yes.
So it's like, I was raised by a Marine. So to learn to embrace those things that I had formerly actually hated about myself personally.
And so when you saw your face split, right side being large, which means overdoing and an imbalance, left side being thin and tight, which indicates a holding back on your inner world and receiving love and receiving joy. You're pursing your mouth. Our mouth in psychosomatics is how we taste life. And for what you're telling me, it probably didn't taste very good at that time.
Yeah, my feminine was like.
Yeah. And with the psychosomatics then, Marti, it helped you visually see what was happening, because I think our brains try to talk us out of what's happening.
Absolutely.
And
I remember I found it, that face split that we were given in our first thing of the woman that was like, she was like a corporate big time executive. Mm-hmm. And it is astounding to see the difference. And I thought like her masculine was beating up on her feminine side looked terrified. Her masculine was a bully. And then a short time later to have it redone, completely different.
Yeah.
And I think for us to, like in tapping, what we do is the SUD scale, 0 to 10, how you have a rating mechanism to be like, okay, how strong, how true does that feel? And then you tap and you re-rate it, because it gives people that, oh, look, it did go down. And with psychosomatics, you can visually see, before and after. And people like that. Otherwise, there's a thing called the apex issue that we talk about in the tapping world, where if people don't have that sort of thing to measure it, they go, well, maybe it's the psychosomatics that help me or not. Maybe the tapping helped me. I'm not really sure.
Mhm. Yeah. And the face split does help.
Huge.
Because the tissue literally changes. I saw it in my face. I'm sure you did. As you were more, as you invited yourself to be more gentle and quit pushing so hard.
Right.
The tissue, it's responding to the push.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Yeah.
you grip down, you pull, and then you push.
Yeah.
And there's probably in your face split today a lot more softness because you're very different than when I first met you.
Oh, right.
And as am I, in that giving more room for the space to relax and not follow the narrative that if I'm not doing, then I'm not keeping up. I heard this the other day. I feel lazy when I'm not doing something. I feel lazy when I'm not productive. And I was telling my friend, I said, it's such a paradox, because when we're feeling lazy and we're resting, we're actually doing something for ourselves. We're nurturing our body, we're nurturing our soul, and allowing the body to rest is literally doing something.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's funny to hold those two in the same space.
It is. And that's been a big thing for me, Christy, the rest thing, because I can still push. There's no question. It's part of my nature. But I also know, like today I had a moment and I'm like, I'm going to go sit outside and eat my lunch. And then a couple of my dogs got a little rowdy and I'm like, you're going in, because I want to sit out here and I want to enjoy it. I want to hear the birds and I want to look at the beautiful view, and I don't want to be in doership. And it's a work in progress.
And what did that do for you, Marti?
I just noticed how
I
started to settle down. And I read this thing recently, and I did it a couple times today. Like I said, I'm a work in progress, where like once an hour, they say once an hour, just pause and connect with spirit, whatever whatever you want to call it. And today I had a couple times where I paused and I just went, oh, and it just felt good to fit it into the nooks and cranny. Because often what I see is it's like, all right, I'm going to do this and this, and everybody's this life-changing plan. And then it doesn't work. And then people feel worse about themselves, where I'm more like a nook and cranny person, because that's been more effective for me. I'm going to fit this in the nooks and cranny of my day. And then the more I do that, it'll build over time and the better it'll get. Instead of I'm going to sit and meditate for an hour, I would crawl out of my freaking skin trying to meditate for an hour. But I can meditate for 3 minutes or even 15.
Which matters, because it stops it slows down the energy in the body of the mind moving and pushing, and then the body's responding to that which can rest.
Right.
Everyone has to do it their way.
Oh, it's so true. The first coach I ever hired, I think you know this story, Christy. She said, I want you to sit outside in nature for 10 minutes and do nothing, like nothing. And I was like,
I can do that.
I was like, what is she, nuts? Of course. I bet I was sitting for 30 seconds and I thought I was going to crawl out of my skin. I was like, I should move that pot. I should put that there. I should. And I'm like, oh my God, like she so saw something in me I didn't see in myself. I was like, she's nuts. That's like such a silly assignment. It was eye-opening. Thus the face split, where like my face is like this.
I laugh with you because my right side was also so wide. I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And that's who I was at the time. So it's, the face splits are amazing. And then understanding your body. Like in June, I'm teaching a 6-day course of psychosomatics, which will go through the face, which you've done. We'll go through reading the hands and reading the feet and reading the body. So understanding us on all levels, and you've done the training. What was that for you when you took that training of the 6 days of really learning how to read the body?
Intense, and in a good way, and exciting. So it was like, it's a lot. And I think your stuff comes up in that. So it's good. It's meant to, and to like, oh, wow. To work through that. That's really good. It was very illuminating for me, and definitely helpful, and definitely posture correcting and, all of that. So I mean, I welcomed it, because obviously it was, I wanted to do it, and I welcomed it. And I thank God for me, though, that I had tapping, because for me, I had done a lot of work on myself emotionally. So I was watching other people be quite triggered. And I had done work. So I was like, oh, wow. It was a good thing to observe that. That's why I say, though, I love the way you work, Christy, because you absolutely, I don't know why that's still going off, because I turned it off, but sorry guys, you're going to hear a ding here and there, is you do, like, you're gentle and kind about it, and you really help people. It's like seeing someone, really seeing someone, not judging, but helping someone to really see themselves. Like I said, for me, the change when I'm like, every line on my face means something, my jawline, the way it is, means something. These legs I have that I spent so much time hating means something. And I love my legs now. I will tell you, I looked the other day, because I spent a lot of time in the sun as a kid, like way too much baby oil. And I was like, I looked at, I was like, oh, wow, my legs are really blotchy. And I had that moment of like, well, and I'm like, you know what? And I truly believe, because of psychosomatics and tapping, like, these legs have carried me through 60 years of stuff. And I could very easily move myself to a better place about it, as opposed to the judgy, culture that we live in.
Yeah, it really is a connection back to the self in every way. I was thinking as you were talking, some of my most treasured moments in my own learning of psychosomatics. I went through and got my teaching certificate, and the most tender moments were the moments where I was seen, and not wanting the mentor, not wanting to change or fix, but really just holding a space for me, especially in the beginning of, I can see how that would be really challenging. I can see why your body is doing this or your body's doing that. And it was such a different way to come into myself and come into what it felt like to truly be seen and not judged. And that is where I come from in my teaching, because that was the most valuable piece for me. Because I think anyone can tell you what something means.
Yeah.
We can read it out of here, right? We have our book. I can look up what anything means.
Yes.
And if the space is, if you're coming into the space as a student and learning, and the space is created for self-compassion and less judgment, that's really where the magic happens.
It really is.
In that safety.
This popped in my head, and I hope this is okay to share. So this, to me, does speak to psychosomatics. And so I had a client that came to me, and she was a young gal at the time. And I mean, she still is. And she had an inoperable brain tumor. And I know you know this story. And so she had a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse in her background. And we did 6 sessions together. And during that time, she would tell me, so we did tapping sessions, and then she would tell me some things physically that were going on with her. So I used the book as a reference guide. And really, this is speaking to being seen and not judged. So after 6 sessions, we're getting ready to start the 7th session. And she told me, Marti, my tumor shrunk in half. She had an inoperable tumor, and her blood work was normal. And that was after 6 sessions. And why I think that is because she felt very seen and not judged, because she had been so highly judged for the things that had happened to her. And, victims are so blamed. in our society, and even this, oh, she's such a victim. Well, we all have a victim in us, because as children, we are victims. We cannot run away typically as children, especially as small children. And to me, it's helping you embrace, and I call it the wounded child. That's just me. We embrace the wounded child in us and give that child love and acceptance, especially for the parts of us that we think are the worst.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, if somebody's doing psychosomatics really well, like you do, that and tapping, I would say in a non-judgmental way, like I do, then, like you said, that person is seen. And that's why I believe the shrinkage of that tumor happened, and then it shrunk again.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing for her, because now all of a sudden she was able to release her own self-judgment, because we were working through that. And that's so transformational for people.
Well, it frees them.
Yes.
I think it frees people out of their own mental prison that we all create. We all have that too, of the looping that happens in our minds. And then we look in the mirror and we see what has been looping, and it just creates the same thing. And what I hear you saying is that interruption that you created, and the recognition of who she was the healing piece. There were lots of details with that, but at the end of the day, that's really what happened.
Exactly. In the Reader's Digest version, that's it. To be seen fully, to be seen and not be judged for it.
Yeah.
Because we both know somebody can be highly re-traumatized if they're seen and then judged.
Well, sure.
And I see, you and I have had many conversations about this, Christy. I see it's rampant in the personal development world, and I don't think people consciously mean to do that. I mean, some people maybe do, but it's that the personal development world. I love this line that I heard said, the problem with the personal development world is it's all about creating a stronger ego. So we live in a highly ego-based culture that's like, put your big girl pants on and do it. And it's like, I can't stand that saying, because it's like, no, my little girl, the wounded child in me, needs to be like seen for who she is, and seen in her worst self. And I use that word very loosely, and to be accepted in, say, the parts of us that we've learned to reject the most. That's where tremendous feeling comes in.
It really is. And I was thinking today, Marty, too, along that same line, I think the unprocessed emotion and bypassing that and jumping on the new age train of self-development, of the phrase of, it's life happened for you, not to you. And there's a fine edge there of, okay, and how do we process what did happen so we can come into a space of really embracing that? Because otherwise, I don't think you can embrace that.
Oh my God, Christy, that is so brilliant. You brought that up, because it's so true. We put these pithy things. I do happen to believe now that life happens for me, even say the things that have traumatized me the most.
Yeah.
But you try to tell someone who's deep in the thick of what is going on for them, like, well, life happens for you. I mean, if you're me, you'd want to throat punch them. Yeah. And if you're someone else, they might crumble and be like, oh my God, like I'm a terrible person. And it is such a fantastic point, and so important for people to know. Like, that's why I have like a mission to debunk a lot of the personal development quotes and stuff like that. It's like, let go, let God, even though that's like a 12-step thing. Let go, let God. Okay. How?
Right.
How do we, it's great to say that, but how do I let go, let God? And that's the journey and the process.
Yeah.
It's happening for me. Really, why does it feel that I'm being rendered and tortured?
Right.
So to give voice to the rendered and tortured part is huge. And, that's why I love tapping, because you get to rant it out and get your truth.
And with psychosomatics, that piece as well, Marty, that I know for me, I noticed when even the bone structure in my face, to understand my gifts. I knew my challenges. I could tell you my challenges with closing my eyes, right?
Right.
But to hear the gifts of my own structure, I think that was one of the most beautiful things that I still hold on to when I go into despair, or I go into, I can't do this. I'm like, no, I can do this. And this is why, and I'll remind myself of the gifts within my own structure and move from there.
I love that. That's so important, because I remember, like, when somebody said your high cheekbones, it means integrity. You can trust that person. And I know that's true of me, but I was like, oh, wow, it even says that in my structure. And I think that's such a great point, is when you're given your gifts, hang on to those. And like you said, well, I always think of Abraham Lincoln, the story when he died, they found these newspaper clippings in his pocket, and they were tattered and torn. It was all the good press that he got, because he got so much bad press. And that's true for us. Our natural tendency is you hear your gifts and you like overshadow them.
Yeah.
But that's the practices to keep reminding yourself, like you said, especially in those despairing moments, and to go, that's gifts I have.
Yeah.
And that is something that's dramatically changed for me. As always, I will be a work in progress. Like, I know my self-confidence has grown over the years. It's when I think back to before, when I would be like sort of cowering in the corner about something. It doesn't mean that I still can't do that, but I don't do it as long. It's not as intense, and I can move through things way more quickly now and feel way more confident about myself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the key, Marti, is the integration of the mind and the feeling part.
Yes.
I'm sure you get aware of the somatic response of whatever it is you're thinking or that you're in, and then you're able to regulate based on the information, based on the work that you've done.
Right. Yeah.
Life is going to still happen. We will still get triggered.
Right.
Life is change. That is a constant.
Absolutely.
And how I think there's easier ways to move through it, and understanding yourself in that is probably the best way to begin.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing and your candid nature. That is why I love you, Marti, because you're willing to say the obvious and talk about things that are uncomfortable, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Things are uncomfortable, which is why I think people get sick. That's why they get hidden. It's part of healing is talking about and seeing it and bringing it to light, so we can figure out what needs to move next.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So important and so needed in the healing profession, truly.
Well, you do offer that. So,
and so do you.
From one to another. Thank you. And so thank you for talking with me today and sharing your experience about psychosomatics.
Thanks, Christy. Always.
It was a bonding moment for us. We're obviously still together.
So. Right.
Yes, that's a good thing.
Yes.
So yeah. Thank you, Marti.
Thank you, Christy.